You know, if there's one medium that feels specifically designed for superheroes, it would have to be video games. Video games allow you to live out awesome power fantasies, and what better way to do it than by being Superman or the Incredible Hulk? Unfortunately, there are a lot of bad superhero games out there, but for this video, we're only going to take a look at good ones. So here are 5 good retro superhero games. Batman Returns for the Master System is a great little hidden gem launched only in Europe. This isn't the first time I've talked about the game either, as I mentioned it on my Video Games Based on Movies video. In Batman Returns, you control DC's Dark Knight as you make your way through the streets of Gotham dispatching Penguin's minions. To do this, you're armed with your trusty Batarang, which can be upgraded to become faster and gain a higher range. You also have your Bat Hook, which allows you to stick to the roof and jump to safety Spider-Man style. Using the Bat Hook can be a little tricky at first, but you'll soon become a pro at it. And finally, you can glide when making long jumps. My biggest gripe with this game are the boss fights. They tend to be really easy, with simple patterns, and are generally not very satisfying. Still, this is a really fun game, and a cheap one too. When people ask me for cheap Master System games or cheap games to import, this is one title I always bring up. And now we go from DC to Marvel with X-Men, the arcade game from Konami. This game was never ported to home consoles back in the day, but the arcade game was so good that it always had a sort of reverence for those who remember playing it. Luckily, it was ported to the Xbox 360 and PS3 in 2010, which is how I'm playing this now. The game is a 6-player co-op beat-em-up, allowing you and up to 5 friends to pick an X-Men, save Professor Xavier, and defeat Magneto. In this case, you can see me playing with a friend, as getting 5 people to play this in this day and age can be a little tricky. One cool thing I always liked about this game is that you can kick enemies when they're down, killing them before they get up. Still, your moveset is a little limited for a game released in 1992. You have a standard combo, a jump attack, you can attack them while they're down, and you have a special screen clearing move that consumes your health. You have 6 characters to choose from, but they play mostly the same, and a casual player will have a hard time noticing any difference outside of the special screen clearing move. One cool thing about this 2010 release is that you can select between the US and Japanese ROM of the game. I generally prefer the Japanese ROM because the US version removes all health and screen clearing pickups. And I generally feel the Japanese game is a little bit more balanced, except for the bosses. They're cheap motherfuckers no matter which version you play. And now, from Marvel and DC to a lesser-known comic book superhero. The Phantom 2040 is a game launched in 1995 for the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. We'll be looking at the Genesis version. And yes, I do mean Genesis, as I imported the US version of this game despite owning a PAL copy. More on that in a minute. This game is based on a short-lived cartoon of the same name where you play as Kit Walker, the great-grandson of the current Phantom. The story of this game is surprisingly deep and complicated, featuring a lot of branching paths. For example, in the first level, a building explodes with your college professor in it, and you can choose to either go left and save him, or go right and gun down the perpetrators. The game is filled with little choices like that, which in turn lead you down different levels or paths within the same level, and of course, different storylines and endings. Kit's basic abilities are his guns, his smart conductance rope, which acts similarly to Batman's Bat Hook in Batman Returns for the Master System, except here it feels more developed, being much faster and allowing for trickier jumps as you can build some huge momentum. Another interesting gameplay aspect of Phantom 2040 is that this is a Metroidvania during a time when the genre wasn't very common outside of Nintendo's own Metroid. And in fact, this is the only Metroidvania released for the Sega Genesis. You have a sprawling map to explore, where you pick up keycards, new permanent weapons, and rope upgrades that allow you to reach new places. Before long, you'll have amassed quite the arsenal as you tear open new areas, secrets, and proceed with the various storylines. Speaking of the story, the game has several cutscenes which can range from still dialogues to comic book style panels. Unfortunately, they were all removed from the European version of the game. Instead, you only get a screen summarizing the events, which isn't nearly as interesting or engaging. Phantom 2040 is another great superhero game, but if you live in PAL regions, my advice would be to import a US copy. And now, we return to the XMen once again, this time with XMen Children of the Atom. This game was launched for arcades, PS1, Saturn, and the PC. Though we'll be looking at the Saturn footage, mostly because I don't own an arcade PCB, and supposedly the PS1 port isn't all that great. This game was developed by Capcom for their CPS-2 system, and came out shortly after Super Street Fighter 2. I'll admit I'm not the best at fighting games, but to me, Children of the Atom feels like a transitional game, launched at a time when developers were looking to improve the formula established in the original Street Fighter 2, but before they hit their stride with Street Fighter Alpha 3 or Street Fighter The Third Strike. This game is pretty experimental for Capcom, as they're often fighting in the air and end up falling through the ground, which can break up the pacing of the fight. You also have a relatively small roster to choose from, and I've even heard that the hit detection isn't as perfect as some of Capcom's better entries. Still, this is a great looking fighting game, with some truly impressive backgrounds and scrolling. Supposedly, some animation frames were cut from the Saturn version because of the elaborate backgrounds, but I still think the animation looks really smooth. I feel the fighting system here isn't too deep or intimidating, and even though the special bar only has 2 stages, I only really use it when it's full. If you like fighting games, but your skills lean a bit more on the casual side of the spectrum like I do, this game is definitely for you. Better yet, this game isn't really that expensive, or at least the PAL and Japanese copies aren't. If you live in the US, you're better off importing. And finally, we move from Western superheroes to a Japanese one, with Mega Man Legends for the original PlayStation. But Stika, I hear you ask, Mega Man isn't a superhero, he was never even in a comic book. And well, dear viewer, you may be right on that. Mega Man doesn't usually fit into the traditional sense of a superhero, but Mega Man Legends is a spin-off set in its own world, and the game looks and acts just like a goofy Saturday morning superhero cartoon. In fact, Mega Man Legends might just be the closest gaming experience we've ever had to a Silver Age superhero. For those who don't know, the Silver Age was the goofy age of comics, when villains were usually comic relief and you had storylines like the Rainbow Batman. And well, for the most part, this is the world of Mega Man Legends. You're pretty much treated as a city superhero.
He really is alone! Can this lone hero save the mayor?
You appear in the news, you're invited to game shows, you're invited to museum openings, and everyone loves you. Even your pirate enemies are comic relief characters that would fit in with the likes of Pilaf from Dragon Ball or other light-hearted action anime from the 80s and 90s. But it's not just a storyline that treats you like a superhero. In many ways, Mega Man Legends plays like an early 3D superhero game before the formula was set in stone by the Spider-Man games during the PS2 era and the Batman games during the PS3 and Xbox 360 era. Just like the Spider-Man games or Batman Arkham City, you have a city to explore. And sure, it's a pretty small city with only 4 blocks and a shopping mall to explore, But this is a PS1 game we're talking about. And once you unlock the Spring Boots upgrade, you can hop from rooftop to rooftop like any real superhero. And then of course, you have the awesome boss fights, where if you're not careful, half the city can end up being destroyed in the fight. And any buildings damaged or destroyed during these boss fights will stay destroyed unless you take on a sub-quest where you help pay for the reconstruction efforts. You even have a basic morality system, where Mega Man becomes darker or lighter depending on whether you do good deeds or bad deeds. And like any true Silver Age superhero, you get new tools and weapons to fight against enemies. This is a really fun action RPG and one I highly recommend, though the controls may take a little bit of getting used to. Still, if you can find this game for cheap, which you probably won't, you should definitely pick this one up. And there you have it, 5 good retro superhero games. Are there any games you'd like me to talk about? If so, let me know in the comments. Hey everyone, thank you for watching 1ka's Retro Corner. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe for a new video every Thursday. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. Bye!